give a warm welcome to our special guests, David Hines, Selwyn Brown, and Rastafari of Steel Pulse. Gentlemen, welcome back to Rototom Sunsplash Reggae University, and Amlock, welcome for your first time. Yeah.
Greetings, man, greetings.
Now, yeah. Steel Pulse, of course, is a group with a long history and a very particular history. I'd like to begin this session by inviting David Hines and Selwyn Brown to tell us a little bit about the foundation of Steel Pulse. Where did it happen? When did it happen? Why did it happen?
Very good question. I mean, it started many, many years ago. Some of you were probably in diapers back then. That's how long. But in 1975, we formulated based on going to school, individuals at the time, myself, Basil Gabiran on lead guitar, Ronald McQueen on bass. And at the time, he had his brother Colin Gabidan that was on drums. Then Selwyn came in afterwards. And then we snowballed onto having Grizzly, Steve Nesbitt as the drummer. And then we also got on board Alfonso Martin and Michael Riley. So Steel Pulse got formed in a bar in the heart of the ghetto, Handsworth, the beginning of January 1975. We could barely play our instruments at that time. Three chords, things like that. And doing local songs that were hits within the Jamaican community. You know, guys like Ken Booth, John Holt tracks, and that kind of stuff.
Now, you just mentioned that the band formed in Handsworth, which is in Birmingham in the West Midlands in England. Can you enlighten the good people here at Rototom Sunsplash, those who might not be aware of Birmingham and Handsworth specifically? What was the environment like in those days?
Well, I heard it's taboo to say the word Windrush, but the Windrush was a ship that really brought over many people from the Caribbean, from Jamaica, Trinidad, the British-speaking Caribbean, that is, Barbados, St. Lucia, Dominica. And it was all about our family, our parents coming over to England to build the country because of the economy and also what World War II did to the country. So we became the first generations of blacks born in the UK. And at the time, our parents were really had a lot of opposition against unemployment. Also, racism was the most, I'd say, the most negatively potent thing that was going on at that time. So it was a brand new set of settlers coming into England, trying to find a niche in society, and was rejected for many, many years to come until we, the first generation, came up and tried to make a change in the situation. So that's what Handsworth is about. It was a black community, and it was also an Asian community, and we sort of got together, got on with our lives. What the main opposition was police brutality and racism and high unemployment.
Okay, so you make it sound like you faced a lot of challenges as a community in that time. So when Steel Pulse came together, what was the conception? What were you aiming for as a group?
I say the aim was to emulate what the Jamaicans were coming up with at that time. You know, the political songs we sort of gravitated towards. And obviously, I think the world knows by now that Bob Marley and the Wailers and Burning Spear you know, Wailing Souls and acts along that kind of caliber were the acts that we were gravitating towards and what they had to say. But the Wailers' album, Catch a Fire album, was the most significant arsenal out of all of that, what we selected as songs. And we wanted to be the British representation of what the Wailers were about at that time. And we took it to another level. We never left it in England. We decided to go international with our cause.
Okay, well, let's take a little listen to a bit of track 2, since you're mentioning some of these early influences, and we'll see what you can tell us about this one.
Turn into sorrow. No one thinks of Jah tomorrow. A which one? A which one? Who the captains them a check bound? Desire to visit Hellfire. Got a one-way ticket to the pawn shop. These evil duties they have to stop. Who check right? Who check right? There's no road. Ella the bond them who no check for. No check for, no better. Ella go bond them who no check for. No check for, no better. Respect for Jah.
Yes. What can you tell us about this song?
Well, I think it was a B-side for one of the singles that we did.
Correct.
And the actual singer that did the main vocal there was Basil Gabidon. And at that time, we were very much influenced by an act called Matumbi. That's what I'm saying. So when we started out to do our first set of recordings, we had Dennis Bovell, who was the mastermind behind what we did. You know, we did songs like Naya Love as well. And Dennis Bovell played an integral part of our development in those years.
And how did that connection actually come about? Because he co-produced that single with you.
Yeah, well, it started when there was a reggae competition in the ghetto at a place called Santa Rosa. And there was quite a number of bands from out of Handsworth. And it was about having the best reggae band. And there was a recording contract in a studio attached to it. And I think we had so much of an acclaim when we actually wrote the lyrics to Handsworth Revolution and sort of made that, you know, how should I put it? The what?
It helped us to win it.
Yeah, well, it helped us to win it. But, you know, the crowd was overwhelmed with us talking about the ghetto the way we did. And that's how we clenched it, went on to do the recordings. Dennis Bovell was actually one of the judges at that time. And he said, oh, by far, Steel Pulses. And, you know, the rest has been history. The rest has been moving up and up and up.
Okay, well, let's see if we can trace a bit more of the evolution. So give us a little bit of track 3, and we'll see what you can tell us about this one.
Better than you, no matter how you dread, I'm on. Dreader than you, no matter how you hard, I'm on. Harder than you, no matter how you raw, I'm for. We got back, we're so. A banana go and go back in captivity. A banana go and go back in slavery. Uprising from the claws of the.
Yes.
You really dug into the archives, haven't you?
Yeah, we're going deep. So by this point, you signed to Island Records? How did that come about?
Well, it actually started when we had a management at the time, and we got attached to to be the opening act for Burning Spear. At that time, Handsworth was back in Burning Spear, literally. He didn't actually come over with his own band from Jamaica, and then we saw the need to be the opening act for Burning Spear.
Okay.
And upon that decision, we went and did a few dates around the United Kingdom, and that's when Ireland discovered us, because Spear was signed to Ireland at that time.
So this was part of the whole legitimization of reggae that was being made in Britain, which was always somehow seen as, quote unquote, inferior to what was coming out of Jamaica. Is that correct?
Correct. I mean, it was at a time where Jamaicans that were in England at the time, and the British born as well, didn't recognize British reggae as reggae for all kinds of reasons. And in all honesty, in the earlier years, they did have that reason, because the sound was not quite the same. The studios had a different sound period. It was more geared towards rock and roll music and pop music. And as you know, if you know Jamaica, the reggae music, the studios had that particular sound within itself, the way it was all EQ'd and the acoustics and the ambience. So it was a tough challenge trying to get that bass right, trying to get that rhythm section right. And so the Jamaican music was more rhythmically driven, while the British reggae sort of not getting the rhythm as right, sort of go on a melodic aspect of things, where there's harmonies and things. And as you know, the birth of Lovers Rock came out of that kind of ideology.
For me, listening back to that record now, the two of the main things that stand out are the vocal harmonies, the particular approach to vocal harmony, and also the keyboard sound. What can you tell us about each of these elements that are so distinctly Steel Pulse?
As far as harmonies, the band that is like we were inspired by the harmony sounds of the Wailers. The first time I saw Third World was on Bob Marley's 1975 tour, I think, and Third World with the opening band. We'd never heard of them, so. Actually, when Third World came on stage and Cat ran, well, I thought it was Bob. Then when they started playing now, they started all these orchestrations, harmonies, Igbo on keyboard and stuff. So things like that rubbed off on us when we came to learn how to write songs. I mean, and then, as David said, bands like Matumbi, people like that, I used to listen to. The Wailers themselves, Tyrone Downey, I would listening to him, watching him, and in those days when you bought albums, you bought mostly vinyls, and they had the opportunity to read who was playing stuff. So albums like, say, Black Art Man, when I saw Tyrone, Harold Butler, Keith Sterling, all these people, so I would listen to them, but at the same time, we listened to music outside of reggae. So we listened to jazz as well, and even though I couldn't play what Herbie Hancock and other people was playing, I would listen to them to see what they were trying to achieve and see if we could include that in the music, in our music.
So you were absorbing some influences from outside of reggae as well as
right,
what was happening in Jamaica.
Right, and at the same time listening to the bands in England as well, because Handsworth and ourselves came up at the same time, but we were watching what they were doing, they were watching what we were doing and influencing and inspiring and helping each other.
Yeah,
like what Selwyn says, I mean, but we didn't really just left it in a reggae genre. We sort of went for the best of what we were doing in each genres. For example, when we started to learn about harmonies, we didn't have a clue how to build harmonies. So we kept listening to bands like the Pointer Sisters, who were the best out there as far as we were concerned when it came to having that, harmonious sound. Then there was War, that taught us another way of block harmonies and singing in unison. And there was mandrills, and these were the acts we were listening to at the same time, trying to get music that was sort of had a cutting edge to it and also can teach us something. So as each one of us tried to perfect our instruments, we sort of focused on the artists that we thought that would make it happen. Like the guitar player at the time was listening to Ernie Isley a lot from the Isley Brothers.
Right.
Selwyn was on, Stevie Wonder. I sort of listened on, all different kind of rhythm guitar players that was going on at the time. You know, within the music themselves, there was a rhythm guitar player behind a lead guitarist and things like that. So, you know, I focused on getting chords, learning as much chords as I can, and trying to incorporate it and change the sound of the reggae music that everybody was accustomed to, where the chords were pretty much basic and never had any extended sounds to them. And Steel Pulse was saying, hang on, let me try this. It worked sometimes, and sometimes it fell flat on its face. But that's what we were doing. We were trying to emulate the best that we saw as the best at that time.
Okay, so you were incorporating complexity into the mix.
Yeah.
I got a few more tracks to play before M-Lock. We haven't forgotten about you. We're going to rope you in a minute. But earlier today, we had a session with Gowdy and Don Letts. We were talking about all kinds of musical connections and crossing boundaries. So let's take a little listen to track 4. See what you can tell us about this one.
Rock against racism, smash it. Rock against fascism, smash it. Rock against Nazism, Mr. Smash it. I've come to conclusion that we're gonna hunt, the National Front. Yes, we are. We're gonna.
Yeah. What can you tell us about that track? The subject matter, Rock Against Racism. What was it all about?
I was just a baby. 1978, 79, Rock Against Racism, XTC, Stranglers, and a whole bunch more. Steel Pulse was very, very instrumental in all what was going on in that time. We had situations in England with racism, which was really, really terrible. As David mentioned, certain things about us being in England, coming from the Caribbean, our parents, some of us born in the Caribbean, coming over, some of us born in England. We were invited there, but we were certainly made to feel unwelcome. And so racism was at a height. There was, eventually riots. And, going back to the 78 time, punks, Rastas, people starting to identify and recognize that we don't really have that much apart from each other. The system that was in place was the thing that was keeping us apart, and eventually with the power of the music and what was going on, we started to come together to rock against the racism, things that were put upon us that weren't really there. There was problems. There's always going to be differences when you got different cultures in the same place, different ways of thinking, doing things, but we actually do have a lot more in common than we do apart, and that's what that whole era recognized, and the music became so potent to the point that we had to really rock against the racism.
Thank you. Okay, so moving forward, give us a quick blast of track 6, selector, if you would. And yes, please. And we'll see what you can tell us about the changes that come around this time. Okay, so,
Why you stop the music, man?
yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
was enjoying that track.
Well, so we're hoping that you can tell us a bit about the motivation behind the music, the inspiration, and so on. And also, by this point, you'd had a label change. So maybe you can tell us about, was this a bit of a transitionary phase, or was it just same thing but different flavor? Or what can you tell us about it?
Well, Amlac was still in diapers when that was recorded. Yeah, I mean, that was what we would recognize as our 4th album, and it became a milestone simply because on the 3rd album, all the, what should I put it? All the accolades, all the hurrah about Steel Pulse was beginning to fade within England at that time because of the ska revival, and also there was a lot of white reggae bands that were formulating at that time. So we had to seek refuge elsewhere, so to speak. And we teamed up after being dropped from the record label, Island Records, with Carl Peterson, who, you know, if you know the history of Steel Pulse, was the one who produced the first 2 albums, Handsworth Revolution and Tribute to the Martyrs. So we got back together because Carl also got kicked off the label, and we met each other in New York in the summer of 1981.
Okay.
And we got there and did 5 demos, songs, and we sort of scouted those demo songs around to the record labels. At that time, you had labels like Arista that had Gil Scott-Heron, who was a politically motivated kind of individual. So we thought we'd have got our foot in the door, but to no avail. So we continued and decided to record this album in a studio far away in Denmark. It was some guys there that opened a new studio and wanted to know what a reggae band sounded like.
Oh,
so,
yeah?
Yeah, so we were out of luck, no money. We didn't have anything to lose but catch that boat to Denmark.
Okay.
And we recorded it in about 25 days, that particular album, and we put our hearts in it. And by the beginning of 1982, we got signed to Elektra Records. And everything started to happen systematically after that.
Okay.
A game changer for our career.
Excellent. Now, since we've been talking about, I think it's about time to take Amlac out of his diapers. So now, most of you, okay, everybody here would have seen him in action last night on the main stage, bringing all kinds of energy and vibes and melody into the bass and into the whole experience. But you might not be aware that Amlac's got his own long and deep history. So let's take a little listen to a bit of track 14, and we'll see what you can tell us about this one, Amlac.
This one is dedicated to the people all over. Remember the words of the crucial entertainer. When I say I do not sip the coke, I only smoke the Sensimilla. I do not sip the coke, I only smoke Sensimilla. I do not sip the coke, I only smoke
Sensimania.
I do not sip the coke, I only smoke
Sensimania.
I do not sip the coke, I only smoke
Sensimania.
Without a doubt, I am the boss, and in my class I am the teacher. If music is a fruit of life, then I will be a reaper. If MC business was a school, then I would be headmaster. If a car, I'd be the driver. For bike, I'd be the rider. If MC business was a church, Pato would be the vicar. And instead of calling me MC, you all would call me preacher. But fun and
Yeah. So, and the artist was?
Pato Banton from Birmingham in England.
And the backing band was?
The Reggae Revolution.
And the bass player was?
Some guy from... These guys come from top Handsworth, and this bass player guy came from bottom Handsworth. Some guy called... I don't know what his name was. Is it on the linear notes? I don't know.
So tell us about the Reggae Revolution and doing this track.
The Reggae Revolution is a band that was working with Pato Banton, originally some of Studio 2 musicians from England and Crucial Music guys. About that, well, first of all, the song was called Don't Sniff Coke, because there was a major cocaine epidemic coming up, and so the need for the Reggae Rasta people to identify that we're not involved in cocaine, we only smoke Sensimania. That was the message behind that song. Pat Pato Banton actually went on to have number ones in England and various countries around the world. Collaboration with another Birmingham band by the name of UB40, right? When in 1995 had a number one with Baby Come Back, right? Which was the originally an Eddie Grant song. So Pato and the Reggae Revolution went on to tour the world, did a lot of stuff representing Birmingham, right? Like UB40, Joan Armour Trading, Steel Pulse, of course, Duran Duran. A lot of stuff came out of Birmingham. But Pato Banton days was good days. That's all I'm have to say. Now we're there with Steel Pulse. Anyway.
Okay, well, yeah, so give us a little taste of track 15 as well. Like, I want to hear a bit about this intriguing track.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're gone deep, you know, brother.
Yes, sir.
You're gone deep.
An excellent track by Ijaman Levi.
Ijaman Levi.
What can you tell us about it?
Wow. Ijaman Levi, I hope all of you guys know who Ijaman Levi is. Right? Ijaman, you know, is one of the original guys out of Jamaica around the same time as Bob Marley. Right? And Ijaman Levi is such a writer, such a songwriter. He's just an amazing guy. If you don't know Ijaman, you have to check out Ijaman. But when I was a little bit younger than I am now, I had the good fortune of being the rhythm guitarist for Ijaman Levi at first, and then became his bass guitarist for about 8 years, traveling around the world and stuff. Right? That track, was it Inside Out? The album?
Correct.
Yeah, Inside Out album. Right? I remember recording that down in London. Right, some hurried recording overnight. You don't remember nothing again until you hear it playing out and thing. Right, but he was basically talking about that he had a dream and a vision, you know, about Bob Marley playing his guitar. Ijaman was very, very strong on Bob Marley and Bob Marley message, which inspired him also. But that part of my career, my early part of my career, I thought I had made it. I had little teeny dreadlocks and I'm playing bass guitar for Ijaman Levi and I was just happy, you know. But that music, Ijaman's music, you know, really inspired and took us through a lot of hardships and misunderstandings coming up in the ghetto, in Handsworth, where not only did we have discrimination on a wider scale in society in Britain, we also had issues with our own community, our parents, because Rasta, some of you might know, is something that even in Jamaican society, people had no real regard for Rasta, 30s, 40s, 50s. Rastas was also actually considered a scum of the earth, so to speak. And having dreadlocks, at that time, we would say you have to have the heart of a lion. But the only person that would have dreadlocks in those times would be a Rasta man with the heart of a lion. So, for example, when I said to my mom, "Mom, I'm a Rasta." Now, I'm the youngest of my mom's children. I'm the baby. She loves me. But when I said, "Mom, I'm a Rasta," the first thing she said, "Give me the front door keys and get out of this house."
Whoa.
Your daddy give you the... Yeah, I think David's dad, when he talked about Rastas, his dad just gave him the forearm under his throat. Rasta what?
Whoa.
And many of us as young Rastas in Birmingham, we faced the punch from our fathers. Rasta was not a thing to take lightly. When you're saying Rastafari, it was a very serious thing, you know? And so music from Steel Pulse was very inspiring. You know, music from Twinkle Brothers, Wailing Souls, Ijaman Levi, the message in the music and the unification amongst disenfranchised youth, you know, it was so very, very, very important. So important. And so my IGMAN days was my discovery days. First of all, recognizing myself as a Rastaman, right? And also the beginning of traveling to certain places and, you know, just discovery.
Thank you. Now, we're gonna open things up for question and answer in just a few moments, but we've got a few other tracks to play first. So get thinking about what questions you want to put to our special guest. But Selector, for now, give us a taste of track 13, and we want to see what these good gentlemen can tell us about this collaboration. 13. 13. Yes. Steel Pulse, come in. What can you tell us about this track and collaborating with Tiken Jah Fakoly?
Yeah, that's a good one. It was a hard decision because we also were familiar with Alpha Blondie. And as you know, they come out of the same neck of the woods, but Tiken Jah Fakoly was a new guy on the block. And that voice that Tekan did was actually recorded in a living room in someone's apartment.
Oh, yeah?
That's where I found him when we was in Paris. And it was the last song written for the album, the title track. And when I met Tiken Jah Fakoly, I thought this guy looked so regal, as if he was from some emperor, somebody that was so overwhelmingly potent as an individual.
Okay.
So he uttered the song and his words, talking about slavery and all that kind of stuff within his language.
Right.
So that's how we pieced it together. I thought it was relevant to have someone collaborating that would get us into the French market and also into the French African market as well. So that's how the connection between us and Tiken Jah formulated.
Okay, thank you. Now, last night on the main stage, there were so many outstanding moments, and several of them came from your most recent album, Mass Manipulation, which you co-produced with Gaudi. You collaborated on some tracks. Let's take a little listen to a bit of track 19, one of the very intriguing songs from that album. See what you can tell us about it before we open things up.
The black and white suppressors, eh? Come on. The black and white oppressors. The black and white music.
Yes. Black and white oppressors. What can you tell us about this track? What's it all about? What's it trying to express?
Self-explanatory, really. We're talking about oppression regardless of color. Whether you're black, whether you're white, you gotta calm down. So that's what it's about, basically. And your Mass Manipulation album was relevant. We actually went to Jamaica and recorded this track. We had Chris Meredith, who, as you know, Chris passed away recently, was actually playing the bass on this particular track. But we wanted that kind of a sound from a Jamaican, living in Jamaica's perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how about the album more generally? Tell us a bit more about putting this album together. How long did it take, and how did you do it?
This album happened over a number of years simply because we were not backed by large record labels anymore. So it was about us getting finance and making sure every time we had the finance, we had a studio to record out of. So another thing about this album, where all the other albums have been recorded in one particular studio, this one was recorded all over the world: Jamaica, England, you know, Martinique, where else? United States, you name it. France, you name it. We just kept picking from different sections, and as we had the money, we said, all right, let's start and do a recording there. And we still, you know, we had so many songs to pick from. There was a number of songs that we recorded, and we said, you know what, let's pick this amount because it was all about the title track, what was relevant at that time. Well, this time, because it's still current what's going on. We've been manipulated and been suckered for life. It's time to change that.
And Selman and Amlak, what can you tell us your memories of putting this album together? What stands out for you in your mind?
He said a number of years. It was a long time coming. I'm so glad it arrived. Now, it was work. Like I said, Martinique and stuff. It was an ongoing thing. But when it finally came together, you know, we can see the results. You know, definitely.
Thank you. Selman?
Yeah, I can remember, I think the first time we started working on tracks, it was something like 2009. I think it was when we was in Martinique. We just done a show there. And then after the show, a few of us stayed on that just to put some ideas together and start jamming some ideas. And then David had some lyrical ideas. And that's the first time we actually saw some of those songs that we initially started recording on, ended up on the album, but some didn't. Because like David said, there are so many songs, so the hard part is condensing it down to a few.
Okay, thank you. So now we're going to open things up for questions. Okay, we got to get a few questions. One right at the back and two in the front. Yeah, come to the back and then we'll move forward.
For Dave,
Yeah.
two quick questions for David. One, the set list, Ku Klux Klan seems to be absent, and I was just wondering, is there a reason? And my second question is, you, being political, living in America, do you vote? Thank you.
Number one, I do not live in America, so I'm not eligible to vote. Number two, Ku Klux Klan is like, put it this way, Steel Pulse is about a concept, and we sort of see things, you know, that are connected to each other. So, for example, if Ku Klux Klan is not the song that we're performing that night, there'll be a song along a similar lines, which is about racism. So, to play Klan here in, say, Spain, what would be more relevant would be songs like Don't Shoot, which is like the current situation that's happening in the United States that involves people that have a Ku Klux Klan mindset. And we thought those songs are like, to begin with, promotes the album. Two, it's what's happening now, as opposed to Klan that's happened many, many years ago. Although we do that song from time to time for old time's sake, but we're out here trying to promote the album at the same time. So we find that Don't Shoot be more relevant to what today's situation is about.
Thank you.
I have a question. I had the experience to see your show at the time, beginning of the year, when you lost your voice. For us, as a public, it was a really great experience, unexpectedly, because we missed your voice, but how did you, as a group, experience it to be playing without David being able and allowed to sing?
Well, it was a very interesting time. So, but I remember what I said to the public is, for I think at that time like 40 lots of years, this man David Hines has given you his voice. So tonight, for the first time, you in the audience have the opportunity.
That's
to
what
lend
you
him.
said.
You remember?
That's right, yes.
You now have the opportunity to be a part of Steel Pulse. He has given you his voice for 40-something years, and tonight we are asking you to give him your voice to be a part of Steel Pulse. Are you with us? And anytime that has happened, to my knowledge, nobody asked for their money back. Well, you know.
Yeah, that's how it is. It happens, you know. To be fair, when it comes to winter months, I'm not a fan of touring in winter months, in winter countries, if you see what I'm saying. So it happens from time to time.
Thank you.
Well, you know, sometimes it happens too when you're, you know, like you said, 40 years of, you know what I mean?
It adds up.
Yes.
It adds up.
Much? Hello? Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for that rendition. My name is Ras Koison. Can you, sorry, I'm here. Yeah. Can you give us a picture of today's, where you grew up? Is it still in any semblance of what you sang about with the gentrification, you know, where you came from? The other thing is that you mentioned don't shoot, which is actually in England, as you know, majority of people have been shot. But the point is, how can the genre, reggae music, play more or part now, since what you said before is seemingly, now we are talking about people being put in badges, you know. I said, the relevance of reggae music today, in going back to you, don't shoot, which is very, very important point. The point is, the reggae music as today, the point, how can that voice be brought? Because what you see in the United Kingdom right now, people are being put on badges as we speak. So in Europe, as you see around, there's a lot of change to the right. And yet we're here talking about reggae music as a cross-border. Thank you very much.
I think you started off by saying what it was like in the community that we were in initially. That was the first point of your question, right? Well, the black community really evolved based on the Asian community, because the Asians were there and they had the lion's shares of properties within the community. So when the blacks first came over, a lot of the times it was about renting a one-bedroom in a house that would belong to an Asian person, until it became affordable for the black family to have their own houses. But it took a long time to materialize, you know, where, you know, families start to send for their siblings or their children one by one. And as they became of age, they were working, putting money in the kitty, and started to, you know, get our own homes, so to speak. So that's how we evolved. It was at a time where the Asians were the ones that were giving us places to stay. You know, it was like no blacks, no dogs, and no what? No Irish.
And no Irish.
That was
Handsworth was an Irish community,
right,
original, when we got there.
Yeah.
Before we got there.
So that's how it was. Now, you mentioned something else about don't shoot.
Yeah, I think the question was about. Remind us again.
Okay. In the first one, I wanted to know how is it today, you know, in terms of gentrification.
All right.
The second question was the relevance of what you said about don't shoot. It's literally every day, corner street. People are shot in London, in the cities.
You actually mentioned the United Kingdom with the barges and refugees placed on barges. what you've got to remember that England has been about Brexit for the past almost 10 years. And it became official, or as the Rastas would say, official about 2 years ago. And it's really about Britain trying to isolate its shores from every other nationality because there's this fear of being taken over by foreigners, especially of color, in the United Kingdom. So that's what the barges are about. It's about isolation. It's about because England has become the last link of all the European countries to be accepting refugees. So England's way of saying, almost similar to what the Americans have done for those illegal immigrants, building little shacks for them, along the borders of Mexico and things like that. It's a similar thing. It's all about fear of being taken over by foreign countries that are far away, that come for a new lease of life. That's what that's about.
I gotta say, with regards to, I'm right.
Yes.
With Handsworth today, right? The images like we were just in the UK the other day, and I had some of the newer members of the band with me when we drove them around Handsworth. Now Handsworth is more of a storybook. I have to take you on a tour to tell you what happened, where it happened, how I was involved, how things transpired. With the makeup of Handsworth now, like you mentioned about the Asian community, it's more about Asian businesses. They have not just a lion's share of the properties, but they've positioned themselves in society in a way that they're making sure that their community thrives. The black community has dispersed somewhat, right? It's not such a stronghold of Jamaicans and Caribbeans as much now. Asian families, they have larger families, so you'll see more of an Asian representation. Handsworth also, as we arrived in Handsworth, Handsworth is a hotbed of people coming into the country. So lots of different people from other war-torn countries or countries with situations, right? The government tends to put them into areas like Handsworth. So we have Kosovans and we have Turkish people that's come. We've got people that came over from Somalia and various other places. So they all landed in Handsworth. So the landscape of Handsworth, or the aesthetics of it, from people perspective, it looks like somewhat different now.
Thank you. I think we got time for just one last question. So well, we got two, we got three. We'll see how many we can squeeze in. Oh, sorry, I got a question over here, yes.
Yes. Okay, I know you've only got time for one question, but I have two questions. Is that okay? So the first one I have is, this band has been going for 5 decades now, plus. And night in and night out that I've watched Steel Pulse perform, the lead singer always breaks sweat. He always starts the show. By the end of the show, he's all wet up with sweat. Now, where does that energy come from? Is it feeding of the crowd? Or is it an inner energy that whichever way is going to portray? And then, do you ever have a bad day in the office? Like how somebody will wake up, go to work, and nah, today wasn't good. Do you ever experience that? Now, those two are one question. Now, the second question is, looking at your stage as well, we see that you have quite some young blood, very energetic young blood behind you now. Do you ever think or feel that these guys are full of energy, I have to live up to their expectation, or is it the other way around? How does that work?
It's a combination of everything. To begin with, that sweat is based on the energy that the people have been giving me over the years, and also my way of honoring their efforts for supporting Steel Pulse all these years. So I like to try and make it feel as if it's my last show. And the reason why I'm saying this, because I did a tour with an individual back in 1978. And we managed to do, dates in Europe and dates in the United Kingdom. And every time we saw this individual perform, it always felt as if it's going to be his last show. And I'm talking about Bob Marley. And when I saw that, he put everything into what he was doing every single night. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to do it like this. It was like 110% of energy every single night. So something rubbed off on Steel Pulse during that. I'm sure of it. So that, that's where we go with that. And as far as the youngsters in the band, we feel Steel Pulse is not just a band. It's a concept, and we feel that there's a necessity to have, the younger the better, because we've sort of snowballed into having as much as 3, almost 4 generations of, citizens that are supporting the band over the years. People our age, people about 15 years younger again, and 15 years younger again, if you see what I'm saying. And these are the people that we're attracting. So we don't mind having the youngsters. The youngsters keep us bright, and they respect our efforts of what we stand for over the years.
We do.
Oh, the bad day at the office? There's always a bad day. If you know David Hines, if you know me, I'm never satisfied with what, we do at Steel Pulse. I always think we can be doing better. I feel that way when we're actually in the studio also. That's where I feel. That's me. I'm my worst critic. You see what I'm saying? But it's all about you and the support you've been giving us all these years. So that's what keeps us going as a band. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I've been told that we have time for one last question, and this is literally the last question. So,
in the meanwhile, my sweat comes from the young people that are coming up, that are doing great. And the biggest sweat, when I sweat, comes from this man in front of me who don't miss anything that I do wrong.
That night where...
Hello, David. I'm sorry I came late, but my question is about Africa. I come from Gambia, and I grew up listening to your music in the small countryside. And that place you have a really, really fan base. And my question is, are you planning an African tour which will include Gambia?
Well, that's a very good question. African tours have always been put to me by individuals and collective entities. Our very first time in Africa was in 1982 in Nigeria. And myself have made a personal visit to Gambia around 2007, 2008. I think Jammeh just came into power at that time. There's always this talk, but because of how Africa's composed, there's always, I would say, not want for a better word, there's always that way where we cannot quite connect from country to country, like how we can do, say, in Europe or in the United States, for all kinds of reasons. You see what I'm saying? But, there's talks of us, we just hit Ghana 3 years ago, it was our last time there, and there's talks of us doing something in East Africa. But yeah, the plan is to tour Africa, because every time we tour Africa, it feels like home. Seriously, I'm not just saying it because you're there or any Africans in the house are there. We always feel that way every time we go to Africa. It feels like home.
thank you. Now, just to remind, we are going to be right back here tomorrow at 6 p.m. for our final session at the Reggae University this year with Anthony B. So make it a date, don't be late. But for now, one more time, warm round of applause for our special guests, Selwyn Brown, David Hines, and Amlok Tafari of Steel Pulse.
We thank you.
Thank you all too.
Gracias.
Thank you.